We're here today because this is code red for healthcare in the United States of America. The Republican caucus thought that while no one was looking, they could sneak through repeal, they could gut Medicaid, they could decimate care for tens of millions of people, and we're here to send one simple message. No! Are we going to let them gut Medicaid?
No!
Are we going to let them take our health care?
No!
Are we going to let them cut funds that people desperately need?
No!
Are we going to fight?
Yes!
Are we going to ever give up?
No!
Are we going to win?
Yes!
They don't realize that we will never stop. No matter how many times they come, we will never quit. If they pass this bill, we will not stop until they are thrown out of office and people who are elected who will undo what they've done. We're here to tell them from now until the midnight on September 30th, they will be followed, they will be chanted at, they will be greeted at their offices, they will be greeted in Washington, D.C., they will be greeted at town hall meetings, at the grocery store, everywhere they go. They will be shamed. We will be there to yell, shame, 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 shame. After they lost their last votes, rightfully, they went into hiding. They plotted their comeback. But guess what? We didn't go anywhere. This movement is still mobilized. This movement is still energized. And this movement is ready to fight every minute of every day, every step of the way, until Trump care is defeated once again.
Wow, y'all look beautiful out here. I just see this lovely glow from everybody here that's protesting and letting Congress know that they cannot take away health care from millions of Americans here in this country. And you know what? I would like to say a quick thing. You know, as a first generation woman of color, every day I wake up and I look at the news, I see repeated attacks on communities and people who look like me. And I get it. We've been at the Hill every single time they introduce a terrible, terrible bill to repeal the ACA, and it can get a little tiring and exhausting at times, but we can't stop, right? We cannot stop. And we will not stop, right?
Right.
We will not let them gut health care from millions of Americans here in this country, because we all know what that looks like. Everyone take a moment and look at the person next to you. Just take a moment and say hi, introduce yourselves, and realize that that person, yes, there you go, that person is in the trenches with you, because this personally impacts every single person here and every single person in this country. And we are not going to let our people down. We cannot give up. This is what, like Trump Care 5.0, 6.0, whatever point oh. We are here to let them know that we will not quit. Is that right?
Yes.
We will not quit.
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 All right. Y'all sound amazing. I still think you can be a little louder. You know, I'm a loud woman from Texas. And y'all gotta show it out, because you know what I'm used to is just big, booming people, okay? So what are we gonna tell Congress? We will not let them stop people from having health care. We are gonna continue to protect the people that are here in this country. And like we said, we will not quit, right?
We will not quit.
We will not quit.
We will not quit. We will not quit. We will not quit.
All right. That's what's up. Appreciate y'all. All right. Now let's give it up.
For our first speaker, Senator Ron Wyden of the great state of Oregon. Thank you.
People power stopped Trump care so far, and people power will stop them again next week. Political change, folks, as everybody here knows so well, doesn't start in Washington, D.C., and then trickle down to the grassroots. It is not trickle down. Thank you for being here, because political change is bottoms up, and we're gonna win. isn't a complicated fight. We're fighting for seniors who are walking on an economic tightrope because this Cassidy bill guts their protections. We're fighting for kids. We're fighting for the disabled. And let me tell you one thing. We are not going to let Cassidy turn back the clock and again allow people with pre-existing conditions to face discrimination. We're not going back. I'm the ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee. We deal with Medicaid and Medicare and funding women's health. And let me tell you something. Anybody who tries to take away from women in America the right to see their health care provider of their choice is going to have to run over me, and women are going to win. My colleagues are in the middle of a vote, so you'll have a number of others coming out. But I wanted to come. I was director of the Gray Panthers for a number of years. Had a full head of hair and rugged good looks. And I know what this means. I know what people power means. We didn't win that last fight by osmosis. We won it because of all of you. Folks, we've got something like 11 days to make sure that once again, people power prevails over special interests, insurance companies and drug companies and the powerful. We're banking on you. Let's make sure that once again, people power doesn't allow turning back the clock on our people. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Senator Ron Wyden. When Senator Wyden said they're coming after seniors, make no mistake. Seniors who are in nursing home facilities, most of them rely on Medicaid for support. This is an attack on seniors, just like it's an attack on women, on young people, on people with disabilities, on everyone who is sick, might get sick, or loves someone who might get sick in the United States of America, and that's all of us.
And you know, he was right. These delays did not happen through osmosis. It's because we resisted. Let me tell you that when we started this fight, that Planned Parenthood alone gained over 1 million new supporters. People are fired up and we're ready to go. Are we fired up and what?
Yeah!
And we're ready to go, folks, aren't we?
Yeah!
All right, let's give it up for our next speaker who's here to fight for us and to help millions of Americans keep their health insurance and for us to better improve our health care system. Give it up for Senator Durbin.
Good to see you all. Just when you thought it was safe to go home, just when you thought it was safe to go back to the office, just when you thought you could take some time off, here they come again. Are we ready?
Yeah.
And the question before us is whether or not we're going to stand up as we did once before effectively and protect Americans who can't be here today. Folks who can't afford to come to Washington, people who can't afford lobbyists, folks who need basic health insurance and access to health care are counting on us. Now, I know we went home after our victory a few weeks ago, took off the fighting shoes, put the jersey back on the shelf, said, well, there's another big win for us. Well, guess what? We're back on the field and we're ready to fight. We're ready to play. We're going to win this because we have to. And the question I have to ask is this. The American Hospital Association stands with us and stood with us when we beat back Trump care last time. Is the Hospital Association with us again this time? Yes, they are. And the doctors across America, all of them, said that Trump care was terrible when it came to basic care for individuals. Are the doctors going to be with us again?
Yes.
Absolutely. Nurses. Community health care clinics. The disease advocacy groups, heart, cancer, lung, all of that. And how about Planned Parenthood? Are you ready to I can see your signs. And now we've got to get our team back on the field. And we got to fight, and we got a game that's coming up right away. Right away. As soon as this week is over, we go into the final week under the Senate rules for them to bring up this latest version of Trump care. My friends, this much I can tell you about the latest version of Trump Care. It's worse than any version they ever brought before. It's terrible. It's meaner. It cuts back on Medicaid, and we know what that means. Half of the children born in the state of Illinois, their mothers are cared for, and they're brought into this world because of Medicaid. Disabled people across my state, Marka Bristow, and so many that she represents. A good word for Marka. So many people that she represents count on one program to make sure that they have quality health care, and that program is Medicaid. And when it comes to school districts across my state, half of the school districts get assistance for helping kids, for special education, transportation, counselors, even feeding tubes from Medicaid. And when it comes to the most expensive part of the program, helping seniors have the medical care they need late in life, there's one program 2/3 of them turn to Medicaid. We're fighting for Medicaid because we're fighting for America. We're fighting for justice when it comes to health care, which this senator happens to believe is a right and not a privilege. So now I call on you. Let's dust off the equipment. Let's get ready to take the field. Let's get ready to win again. Fight to make sure we protect health care for all Americans. Thank you, everybody.
All right, let's give it up for Senator Durbin. Thank you. You know, we're at a moral crisis in this country. People should not have to die due to lack of access to care, and that is currently happening, and it will get worse if this bill should pass. And guess what, y'all? Health care is a human right. Say it with me.
Health care is a human right. Health care is a human right. Health care is a human right. Health care is a human right.
What is health care?
A human right.
What is health care?
A human right.
What is health care?
A human right.
All right, y'all. Y'all sound great and loud. Thank you.
Woo! The Republicans are divided. And I'm not just talking about the senators. I'm talking about their people. Republican voters do not like this repeal. They are not representing anyone but the billionaires that want to shred public programs. But you know what? Our side is united. Our entire Democratic caucus is united. From Senator Manchin all the way to our next speaker, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here today. We beat back the Republicans when they wanted to throw 23 million people off of health insurance. We beat them when they wanted to throw 22 million people off of health insurance. We beat them when they wanted to throw 16 million people off of health insurance. And we damn well are going to beat them today where they want to throw over 30 million people off health insurance. It goes without saying that in the year 2017, we should be talking about health care as a right for all people, not a privilege. And on a personal level, on a moral level, I have a very difficult time understanding, I really do, it's not politics, how it could be that any member of the United States Senate could cast a vote to throw people off of health insurance when today they are struggling with cancer, with diabetes, with heart disease, with Parkinson's disease. What happens to you if you have a life-threatening illness and you're suddenly thrown off of the insurance that keeps you alive, that gives you access to your doctor? What happens to you? Thousands of people a year will die if that legislation becomes law. And I have a hard time understanding how any member of the Senate could vote for legislation which takes insurance and support away from disabled children who are now on the Medicaid program. Now, what happens to you if you are a kid with Down syndrome, if you are a child with autism, if you are a kid with asthma, if you are a kid with some very difficult disease? What happens to you and your family if Medicaid is stripped away from you? Brothers and sisters, this is a profound moral issue. And the truth is, as you have already heard, that the overwhelming majority of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, understand that in the United States of America, we must not take away the lifeline of health insurance from millions of our people. That is what the American people understand. And it is time for my Republican colleagues to start listening to the American people and not the billionaire class and their wealthy campaign contributors. Keep up the fight. We're going to win this.
Healthcare is a right, Trump care is wrong. 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 Thank you, Senator Sanders.
And it's equivalent to a lot of developing countries. We don't want to see that being spread across the country. And as a black woman, someone like me has a higher percentage of dying from birth. And I'm here to protect those women. And we're here to protect those women. Also, our next senator, Senator Booker, is here to protect those women. Thank you for being with us today.
We're gathered here again. I feel almost like this is a 1980s horror movie. It's like Nightmare on Capitol Hill, Part 5. But we know this who have any consciousness of the history of our country, that every inch of ground that we gain, every step that we take has to be fought for and worked for and sacrificed for. And we know at this critical moment, here we are again. In the history of our country, we have constantly worked to expand opportunity, to expand our conception of justice, to expand our conceptions of freedom, sacrifice, and struggle. And here we are again at a moral moment in our country. After working 50 plus years ago to expand access to health care with Medicare and Medicaid, after just a decade or so ago with the Affordable Care Act, that 20 million more people got expanded access to health care, the justice, and the equality that comes with having that security. But here we are again where we have people that are trying to take our progress and drive us back. And we have to now, like our ancestors before us, stand up and say no. We will not go back. We will not go back. Now I tell you this, you can say it again, we will not go back. 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 I want to tell you this right now, though. There's a lot of folks out here that do not understand the urgency and the crisis that we're in. Because at the end of the day, the biggest enemy that we face in these coming days and hours is not just the craven, cruel bill that's been proposed, but ultimately it will be the silence and inaction and indifference of all of us. We have got to get folk woke to the crisis that we have right now. We've got to awaken people to the urgency of this moral moment in our country. We now in this country have witnessed how this Congress can work. Just yesterday, in a bipartisan way, we passed a national defense bill worth billions and billions of dollars. You saw people come together to protect the national defense. But we've learned in the last weeks that the national defense isn't just threats from abroad, from North Korea or Iran. The national defense, we saw it as hurricanes swept into our country. And there we saw people, first responders, not saying, hey, are you a Republican or you're a Democrat? Are you rich or are you poor? No, we responded in a unified fashion for the national defense. Well, I'll tell you right now, cancer doesn't care if you're rich or poor. Diabetes doesn't care if you're rich or poor. Autism is a challenge that affects families of all backgrounds. When it comes to the conceptions of our national defense, it's not only important that we have the world's largest military, we in America should have the world's best health care. In a country this wealthy that can afford nuclear weapons and aircraft carriers, we should be able to stand up and say that every American has a right to affordable, quality health care. In a nation that has the best military, spending more money than the next 9 countries combined, we should be able to say in the United States of America that we can make sure that every child born in our nation is born with quality health care. We should have a nation where our senior citizens don't fear that they won't be able to afford a nursing home. We should have a nation where we know that if someone has a condition or an illness, that their only access to a doctor is not an emergency room. We should know that if there's a veteran, someone who stood up for their country, that when they're home, their family members, their cousins, and their neighbors, that we should be standing for them as well. And so now in this moral moment in our nation, we have to again remember that the determination of this moment will be decided by the people, because the power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time that we live up to our creed and become a nation that affirms life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness for everyone in our nation. And you cannot have life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness if you do not have health care. It's time that we live up to the oath that we all say when we put our hand on our heart, that this should be a nation of liberty and justice for all. Well, you cannot have justice in a country where health care is accessible only to the wealthy few and not to the all of us. We have to have liberty in this country, and you cannot have liberty in America if people are chained to fear because they cannot afford basic medications and coverage. You cannot have liberty when you're shackled to the uncertainty of not knowing if your child gets sick, will your family be thrown into bankruptcy because they can't afford health care. We in America must become the truth that so many people in other nations now enjoy. The truth that says we are strong enough, wealthy enough, noble enough to have a system of health care that serves every one of our people. And today we are at a crossroads. Will we go forward to the day where every American has access to health care, or will we allow a craven Republican bill that tries to take us back? I say we will not go back. We must go forward, and we must fight every day until we have justice in this country for all. Thank you very much.
All right. So when members of Congress try to strip 13 million women from maternity care, what do? We resist. What do? Resist. When members of Congress try to defund Planned Parenthood and stop 2.4 million women from receiving the health care they need, what do? Resist. When members of Congress try to increase costs with people with pre-existing conditions, which is pretty much almost everybody, what do? Resist. What do? Resist. All right, thank you, Senator Booker, with resisting with us.
I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker. He's known as the Giant of the Senate. He's Senator Al Franken of Minnesota. Let's give him a round of applause.
Let's hear for these guys. Let's hear for Ben Wickler. You know, this is kind of snuck up on us, this Graham Cassidy bill, and we're mobilizing people, and I've got an idea. We should have a rally here. So let's do that.
Good idea.
I've just been through. I mean, it's been a good thing. 2 weeks of bipartisan hearings on what we need to do to stabilize the Affordable Care Act. I like that. I got a little drum on stabilize the Affordable Care Act. Very, and I couldn't believe that I didn't get cheers on stabilize the Affordable Care Act. Now, the fact of the matter is, yes, every American has a right to health care. That should be what we do in our country. And I applaud Bernie, and I applaud those who have signed on, including myself. I applaud me for signing on. Yay me. But right now, we've been working in good faith, Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray and the members of the committee, in making sure that we do things to bring the cost down. And during that time, we've seen this Graham Cassidy bill emerge, which is another in a line of these Republican bills, which does so many of the same things. Now, we don't have a CBO score on it. We're not going to before next Friday. Now, Senator McCain said that he won't vote for something unless it goes through regular order.
Not regular order.
This ain't regular order, as far as I know.
Nope.
Keep your word.
And this is another bill, another Republican bill that's going to cap Medicaid, take money from so many different people, punish states that have expanded Medicaid. Imagine that. Look, there are people who are alive who come up to me, and mothers whose kids are alive who come up to me in Minnesota and say thank you for the Affordable Care Act. This would repeal and replace it with something that would leave tens of millions of people uninsured more and would hurt people. Now,
Kill him.
what surprises me about this bill is you all saw Jimmy Kimmel
Yes.
on his show several months ago after he had gone through a searing experience watching his son at birth, learning that he had a very, very serious heart defect, and having his life saved, having his son's life saved because he was able to afford it. And he went out and did his monologue. It was the least funny monologue Kimmel has done, by the way. It was very moving. And he was basically saying that no one in this country, no parent should have to face that. No one should have to face that for himself or herself, which I have seen around the state of Minnesota before we had the Affordable Care Act. So he said, Jimmy Kimmel said that no one should be denied life-saving care because they don't have the money. And Senator Cassidy went on Jimmy Kimmel's show and said there should be a Jimmy Kimmel test. This is sad because Graham Cassidy would not meet that test.
Shame! 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 Shame!
We're here today so that every child, every adult, every American can receive health care. The Affordable Care Act has not been perfect, but it has expanded the number of people who get health care. It has saved so many lives. And what this would do is destroy all the progress we have made. So we need you to tell your friends. And we need people who are watching on television to call their members of Congress. We need people from rural America saying this is going to destroy rural hospitals. We need rural hospital administrators saying that to their members. We need to rise up. And I want to thank the organizers for doing this. I want to thank my fellow senators. Coming up next is a great senator from Minnesota. One of the two giants from Minnesota.
But she only has a size 6.
The senior giant. So, thank you. Thank you for caring.
Thank you.
And thank you who are watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you.
Thank you. Trump care fails the Jimmy Kimmel test. 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 Thanks again to Al Franken.
All right, you guys, let's give it up for one of my personal favorite senators here. She's looking lovely over there in that teal suit. And we need as many allies as we can up in that building over there. And that means that each and every person here, we need to continue to fight in reaching out to our senators. That means me, you, your mama, and your cousin too needs to go out and call your senator. Reach out to your networks because you know what? She can't do it alone. They can't do it alone. We need as many people. So what do? Call our
Senators!
Call our
Senators!
Call our
Senators!
All right, let's give it up for Senator Klobuchar.
Okay, she has cooler shoes on than me, but other than that, it is so great to see all of you, and I will note there is one state that had both senators here. That would be the state of what? Exactly, a state that knows a little bit about health care and has a lot of great doctors and nurses that care a lot about keeping people alive. So back in August and all through this summer, I was out at parades in Minnesota, and I couldn't believe the number of people. I'd never had this happen before. Parents of kids with disabilities, kids in wheelchairs, parents of kids with Down syndrome. They would bring their kids to the middle of that street while we're all waving flags, walking down the street and say, "This is my child. This is a pre-existing condition, and he's alive because of the Affordable Care Act." That is what happened. Seniors and people in our rural areas that maybe hadn't been that outspoken about this before, they came out too. So we implore our Republican colleagues, especially the three that were with us in that very important vote, remember that? To stick with us again, because we have seen many versions of this. Version A and B were the House repeal bills, remember? Then version C and D were the Senate repeal bills. Then version E was a plain repeal bill with no replacement. Then version F was a bill that went down in flames before August, and I thought we couldn't get lower than F. But here we are again. Again. So, what do we need to do? Well, first of all, I make the case to all of our friends out there on the other side of the aisle. Are you ready for this? I have heard so many times that you shouldn't vote for a bill unless you know its impact, unless you read the bill. Well, at least for your constituents, it's their health care, it's their money. Wait until we get the data and the information on who this affects and how it affects each state. We are not going to have that. Let's hear it for the Congressional Budget Office score. We need to find that out. Secondly, let's not forget Senator McCain's dramatic speech when he came back to the Senate. I was there when he talked about how important it is to work across the aisle, how important it is for us to actually go through what's called regular order so that we have committee hearings in the committees of jurisdiction. Guess what? Has that happened here? No. That has not happened here. Third, we don't go and kick millions of people off their health care. That is not America, as I see that flag right in front of me. We do not go and tell people who are suffering from opioid addiction that we're not going to give them health care. We do not say to our rural areas and our small towns, guess what? We don't care about your hospital. We don't care if you go to the emergency room. This is our moment to stand up. So I want to know, are you ready to stand up for those kids in that parade? Are you ready to stand with us for Planned Parenthood? Are you ready to stand up with us for those rural areas of the country if our colleagues won't do it? We're ready to do it, so let's get to work, defeat this bill, and get the real work done, which is to, as Senator Franken said, stabilize the exchanges we have. That might sound boring, but that is what we need to do now, and let's get it done and defeat this bill. Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you, Senator. And that reminds me, where is that CBO score? Are y'all wondering where it's at?
Yeah. No score, no vote.
No score, no vote.
No score, no vote.
No
score, no vote.
No
score, no vote.
No
Score, no vote. Woo! I'd like to welcome our next speaker, a man of faith, a deeply thoughtful senator who wants this to be the world's greatest deliberative body instead of the world's most partisan, ridiculous body like the Republicans are making it. Oh. I'd like to welcome the uniter of the Fighting 48 in the Democratic caucus, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer. Welcome.
Thank you. All righty. Let's hear it for Move On. And it's great. And it's great leader. Let's hear it for Planned Parenthood. Let's hear it for women's health. So let me tell you, my friends, it is easy to be complacent. It is easy to say, oh boy, we went through this once, why do we have to go through it again? But there's a reason why we can't be complacent. There is a reason why we have to be strong and resolute and not say, oh God, let's not go through it again. It is 30 million Americans who will lose health care if this evil bill passes. It'll be a mom and dad who have a daughter or a son. And they learn that that child has cancer. Nothing can rack a parent's heart more. And they go to their insurance company and say, oh yeah, we'll treat you. $50,000 policy. Put it down now. Can you imagine? It is a couple in a suburb who has a parent in a nursing home and they get booted out because there's no more Medicaid. It is a 23-year-old who had her life ahead of her and now is addicted to opioids who can't get treatment. It is a young child who has a very serious illness and only Medicaid can pay for the treatment that makes that young child whole again. It is for a woman who needs health care and maternity care. It is for so many people that we have no choice. We must fight every bit as hard as we did last time. Are you ready? Is every senator and congressman who might think of voting for this bill going to hear from us this weekend? Yes! Are they going to hear from us once? No! Twice? No! Many times? Yes! In every way? Yes! In every way. Protesting, picketing, tweeting, emailing, you name it. Ladies and gentlemen, skywriting. Skydiving. What's that? Jet skiing. And all those newfangled things you young people do. Smartphone. Now, let me just say this in conclusion, because I see my colleagues waiting here. Last time, we had a great team. We had a team of strong and resolute senators who would not budge. but most of all, we had you. They knew that we weren't just talking out of our hats or some other place. They knew that we had the people behind us. The people are behind us now more than ever. The more they learn about Trump care, the more they hate it. And you are the people, the leaders, who galvanize the public to have the strength, the courage to stand up and say no. And to anyone who votes for this, you will pay an awful price because you have hurt the health care of so many others. So, folks, we won the last fight. We won the fight before. Are we going to win this one? Are we not going to rest till this horrible bill, worse than the last one, is dead? On to victory, everybody. On to victory.
Thank you, Senator. All right, when health care is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When health care is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When Planned Parenthood is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight
All
back!
right.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Senator Cardin, our next speaker. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so proud of the unity of the Democratic caucus standing together in opposition to the Republican effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act and replace it with these horrible bills. Let's hear it for Senator Schumer. He's done really a great job keeping us together, united. And we, the people, the only thing that stands between Donald Trump and accomplishing his objective to jeopardize the health care for millions and millions of Americans, the only thing is we, the people. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of the strength of America. Using your presence, using your voice. I'm frequently asked, how can you make a difference? How can you get involved in the political process? How can you stop what's going on? Move on, join this group. Be here, protesting. Call your senators, call your delegates. Make involved. It makes a huge difference. We all know what's at risk. I had a young couple came to me. Their child was born early, has significant problems. That family would have reached their cap on their health care policy, their lifetime cap, in the very first year of that child's life. This is a matter of life or death for this family. They understand it. I had a young woman who thanked me, said, as a result of the Affordable Care Act, I got early preventive health care, discovered breast cancer early. It's been taken care of. All of it was covered under the Affordable Care Act. That could be gone if we don't stand up and fight. We're fighting for tens of millions, but we're fighting for those individuals who need our voices together to stop what they're trying to do. We thought we were going to be doing okay, but we should know that there is an effort here to undermine the health care of millions of Americans, and we're still at risk, but we can win because the power in America is with we, the people. We can win this issue. So what should we be talking about? As you heard from some of my colleagues, we've had some meetings on how we can strengthen the Affordable Care Act. It did a lot of great things. We can do better. Well, why don't we make sure that we appropriate the right funds for the Affordable Care Act? That's one thing we could do. Why don't we bring down the cost of health care and take on the pharmaceutical industry so we have reasonable prices in this country? That's another thing that we can do. So there's things that we can do that's constructive. The problem with the Republicans, their train's moving in the wrong direction. They're going to take away care from millions of Americans. People will die. You're absolutely right. So I couldn't be prouder to stand with you. You energize us. I'm often asked, how's it like to get up in the morning and come to work with President Trump and Republicans in control? I tell them I don't want to leave my station at night because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. And I am strengthened, we are all strengthened by your presence. You're making a huge difference. But it's crunch time. This is a key time. We know that they're using this unfair procedure without scoring, etc. Horrible. No CBO score, and they're going to vote on a bill. It's horrible. We have a few days left. This is crunch time. We need you now to call every member of the Senate and let them know how you feel about it. Are you on board? Yeah. Are you ready to fight? Yeah. Are we going to win? Yeah. Thank you all very much.
Woo. Thank you, Senator Garden. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Say what?
Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Say what?
Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop.
Woo! And we won't stop, y'all. You know, largely the fight has been led by a lot of fierce women, fierce organizers, and our women legislators have been one of the hardest advocates for all of us. So let's give it up for Senator Harris.
All right, so most of what needs to be said has been said. But, you know, I'm looking across the way at that building right there, and that building is the building that symbolizes and contains decisions that have been about what we as Americans consider to be the fight for justice and what will be the implementation of justice in our country. If you look across it, it says equal justice under the law. That is a founding principle of our country, equal justice under the law. Most of the civil rights fights that we have fought in this country have been won in that courtroom. This issue of health care is a matter of civil rights. This is a matter of civil rights. And we who work in this building, across from that building, need to understand this and get it straight. This is about a civil right. And, you know, it's been interesting. I'm new here. I'm new to D.C. And, you know, and I've been asking people, you know, there's this little train that runs under the Capitol. You run into people. And I've been asking them, so what's really going on? Because, you know, as far as I can tell, the last fight that we had on this, where the power of the people won, you know, now that we're doing this again, I feel like this is some Hollywood movie where it's like take one and now we're on take two. Like, you know, this movie has already been, the story has already been told. The people have spoken. So why are they doing this, I've been asking folks. Why are they doing this? Why are they yet again, within weeks, trying to deprive millions of Americans of the fundamental right to have health care? And here's what's even worse than that. You know what people are saying? They're doing it because they feel they have to keep a campaign promise.
Oh, God.
Is that who we are as a country? The foundation upon which we were built, the principles that are behind a Bill of Rights and what we say in terms of what we believe in and the values behind the Constitution of the United States, are the values and the principles and the ideals behind that a campaign promise? No. Right. So they're doing it to keep a campaign promise. Well, okay, maybe that applied with take one, but then their own constituents said, you know what, that campaign promise ain't working for us. Woo! That campaign promise was flawed, and now that we know what you're really talking about, once you now don't have the tool of vilifying our former president of the United States, when we start looking at what you're really talking about and we're not distracted by this label you put on it, when we start showing up at town halls, the people spoke and said, do not take away our health care. The people spoke. The people spoke across this country in red states and blue states, Republicans and Democrats, Green Party members, Pink Party members spoke and said, do not play politics with our health care. Do not deprive sick people and women with the ability to have health care because of what you call a pre-existing condition. The people spoke and said, do not penalize the elders among us, our seniors, because of their health care needs. We spoke and we said we do not agree with this it is against a fundamental principle of who we are in terms of what we talk about as fighting for civil rights and caring about civil rights. So that's what this fight is about. This is a civil rights fight. This is a fight for everyone to be equal under the law in our country. So that's the fight we have right now. And folks, we have 12 days, 12 short days to get this done. And so what I know with the group of folks here is this is the same group that were surrounding the Capitol that night of the last vote, who were out here all night long. And remember, we spoke at the end of that night, and really it was early in the morning, and I remember coming out and speaking with so many of you who have been fighting tirelessly. And the conversation we had is this, and it was a conversation of optimism. The conversation was, okay, so we got to fight sometimes, and maybe more times now than in recent history. Okay, we have to fight. Well, you know what? We are prepared to roll up our sleeves and do what we got to do. But here's the beauty of it, and this is the thing we recognized in the early morning hours on that day. And when we fight, we also fight for the ideals of our country because democracy won that night. Democracy won. The people spoke and they were heard. Democracy won. So let's not lament that we have to go through now take two. Let's not lament we got to go through this again. Here we go again. Let's not throw up our hands. Let's roll up our sleeves. We've got 12 days to get it done. So keep sending notes and messages on Twitter. Keep email. Keep snail mail. And keep shouting when we need to, marching when we need to. I know in my heart that the power of the people will win again. And we will be fighting not only for all of those millions of Americans who have and need access to real health care. This is about fighting for the best of who we are as a country. And in that way, guys, I'm going to close with this. Don't ever let anybody convince you that this is about some subversive movement. This is about something that's about on the fringes. This is about those people. No, you know what this fight is about? This fight is about fighting for the ideals of our country. And when we fight for the ideals of our country, we are patriots. This is about fighting because we love our country and we will fight for the best of who we are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Harris. You know, there's a saying that I feel like runs really true right now is that there ain't no sleep for the wicked. And you know, from personal experiences, I know once you sleep on folks, they come in and try to pass something and shove it down your throat that's going to hurt a lot of people. And you know what? We're not going to sleep, right?
No!
We're going to keep resisting, right?
Yeah!
We're going to keep showing up to town halls, right?
Yeah!
We're going to keep bothering them and calling them and calling them and calling them, right?
Yes!
We're going to sign those petitions, right?
Yes!
We're going to stand up for Americans to protect their health care, right?
Yes!
We're going to stand with Planned Parenthood, right?
Yes!
All right, thank you.
You might remember this summer, Senator Moran went home to Kansas. He had a town hall meeting, and in one of the reddest parts of one of the reddest states in the United States of America, everyone who came to that town hall meeting was against repeal. Senator Moran came out and he said he was against the Trump care bill too. Now, for some reason, not a lot of Republican senators are holding town hall meetings these days.
Cowards!
But Democrats are still listening to their people. And our next speaker is holding town hall meetings across the state of Oregon. He detected right away the energy in this movement. He's been working hand in glove with the grassroots. I am so pleased to introduce Senator Jeff Merkley.
You know, when the House leadership came up with that diabolical Trump care plan that threw 20 million plus people out of health care. The Republicans said yes, but grassroots America said no. Went over here, there were 13 Republican senators that went in secret to develop a plan and put it forward. The Republicans in the Senate said yes, and grassroots America said no. When Ted Cruz said, oh, hey, I've got this fake insurance bill, let's put that on the floor, and the Republicans said yes, we said no. When the Republicans said, well, let's just do a complete repeal with no replacement, they said yes, we said no. And then the skinny bill that they were going to get everyone on board for on the Republican side, and virtually all said yes, and grassroots America said no. What are we going to say to Graham Cassidy? No! You know, a woman came up to me after we had Obamacare, and she said, things are so different now. I said, how so? She said, here we are at this fundraiser for multiple sclerosis. A year ago, if you got this diagnosis, your loved one did, they were in big trouble. If they had insurance, then they might have an annual cap or a lifetime cap, and it's an expensive and mysterious disease, so they would be out of luck. And if you didn't have insurance, you had a pre-existing condition, you weren't going to be able to get insurance. She said, I so much appreciate that now we have the peace of mind that when our loved one gets sick or injured, they're going to get the care they need. Peace of mind. What are we fighting for?
Peace of mind.
And when do we want it?
Now.
What are we fighting for?
Peace of mind.
When do we want it?
Now.
Absolutely. Now, I'll tell you that in my blue-collar community, things have gotten a lot tougher. It's much tougher to be able to get a full-time job. It's a lot tougher to be able to get a living wage. It's a lot tougher to buy a house. Folks in my community say the only way they're going to get a house is inherit it from their parents. It's a lot tougher to save to help your children if they want to go to college. And I'll tell you what, one thing got easier and better this last 8 years, and that is Obamacare. Yeah. So here's the Republicans saying, you know what? We've hurt working America, we've hurt grassroots America, we've hurt the poor in every way we possibly could, except one. And that is, they've all benefited from getting a better access to affordable quality health care. So they are determined, living in their gated communities, driving their limousines, never holding a town hall, to take away the one thing that's gotten better for Americans. Are we going to let that happen?
No!
Are we going to overflow the inboxes?
Yes!
Are we going to flood the phones?
Yes!
Are we going to fill the streets?
Yes!
We have only a few days to do it. Let's get it done. Thank you all for fighting.
Thank you, Senator Merkley.
You know, it's as if they seem to think that the American people are burdens. And we're not, right?
No.
Our health cost is not a burden. And you know what makes America great? Immigrants make America great. The transgender community here in the U.S. makes America great. People with pre-existing conditions, which is pretty much everyone, make America great. We make America great, right? We make America great.
We make America great. We make America great. We make America great.
And we have to remind GOP members, and we have to remind Trump who makes America great. It's us, and that they cannot shove us behind, and they cannot strip us of vital services. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, so I just want to give it up for Senator Murray, who's pretty much been here with us.
Chris Murphy.
Chris
Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy, that's what I said. That's what I said. Sorry. Yeah, who's pretty much been here at every rally in the trenches with us, and this is amazing. We have to be with him right now in this moment and moving forward because we got to stop this bill. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you, guys. So I'm not normally mistaken for Patty Murray, but I will take it. I will take it. She fights like hell. So listen, I'm just going to be really quick here. I just want to bring us back, a bunch of people have, to that night when you all were tired, and frankly, a lot of people had already put the 51 votes in their pocket. Folks were getting ready to fight the next fight after the skinny bill passed, and you didn't go home, right?
Right.
Right? You stayed here until the very, very end, and you proved that political action, no matter how tired you are, no matter what it puts you through, no matter how fast you have to run to chase down individual senator after individual senator, political action still works, right? And listen, there's nothing worth doing in this world that isn't really hard, right? The easy stuff, right? It only takes 5 or 10 minutes of your time. That's not the stuff you're going to remember. And somebody said shortly after the election, something that still holds true today. They said, you remember back in history class when you were reading about that momentous period in time, and you thought to yourself, well, what would I do if I was alive back then? Well, this is that time, and you're alive now. So what are you going to do? You're going to fight, right? You're going to fight, right? This is one of those moments where when you are on your deathbed, when you are telling stories to your grandkids, you are going to have to account for what you did during this period of time. And I know it feels like we're asking you to come back and back and back again, but what we are seeking to protect is something monumental. 20 million people's health care is at stake. You're talking about hundreds of millions of people with pre-existing conditions. They all can't come down here to the United States Capitol, but you can, right? Yeah. You can be here until the end, and you will remember this moment when all is said and done, because we are going to beat them on Graham Cassidy too. We are going to beat them again, and you are going to be able to tell the story for when you stood up for American ideals, when you stood up for the disenfranchised, when you stood up for the dispossessed. And by the way, when you're talking about this bill, don't label it as just the latest version of Trump Care, just the latest version of repeal and replace. It's the most extreme version yet. It is the most radical version yet. It is the meanest, the cruelest version yet. And with all due respect, it's not cuts and caps to Medicaid. It's the end of Medicaid, right? Medicaid, as we know it, is destroyed by this piece of legislation. So say what it is, right? Say what it is. This is the meanest, cruelest, most extreme version that they have put forward this body. They are desperate to fulfill a political objective. And you are going to be here over and over and over again. And even if on that last day, when that vote is about to happen, you don't think that we have the votes, remember what happened a couple months ago. Until the last minute, we continue and we stand fighting, and we will deliver a victory again. Go to it, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, let's give it up. Sorry about that. All right, healthcare is a human right.
Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare is a human right.
Woo! We are moving from the Senate to the grassroots. So let's give one last round of applause for the senators who came out today and were fighting inside that building. Every Democratic senator is voting no to this atrocity. But they can't get the Republican senators to vote no without all of us. And that's why I'm so pleased by the grassroots activists, by the people representing the organizations who have joined us today, and we'll round out today's protest. Our next speaker is a leader of faith. He's Rabbi Jason Kimmelman Block of Bend the Ark Jewish Action. Welcome to this rally. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. As a rabbi, as a person of faith, I am outraged that leaders would continue over and over again to force through such a despised and unpopular bill that will do harm to so many people. They keep working in secrecy, without hearings, without a true hearing of the devastating consequences. That's not democracy. The resources of this society should be directed where they're most needed, to the working poor who don't have the benefit of a job that provides health insurance, for services and support structures that help people with disabilities live with dignity and to thrive, and for long-term care for the elderly who need and deserve support in their advanced years. This bill returns us to the bad old days when people could be denied insurance or forced to pay exorbitant amounts because of pre-existing conditions. As if all of us weren't already experiencing the pre-existing condition of being human, of having a body that one day will fail each and every one of us. As the father of a child who survived the devastation of leukemia and is still experiencing the after effects of the brutal treatments that saved her life, I want to say clearly, we will not go back to the bad old days of pre-existing conditions. Tomorrow night in the Jewish calendar marks the beginning of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which begins a 10-day period of intense reflection where we are called to account for the actions that we have taken in the past year. In what way did we help and serve others? And in what way did we cause harm? The classic imagery is that our lives hang in the balance between the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur 10 days later. This year, for millions of people, this is not just a metaphor. The Senate has until September 30th, which is the day of Yom Kippur, to pass legislation that will rob millions of health coverage, gut Medicaid, and return us to the days when pre-existing conditions could make someone uninsurable. Over the next 10 days, the decisions of the Senate will mean the very difference between life and death. And we are here to demand that they choose life.
Thank you. All right, so our next speaker is a great advocate, and his name is Walter Susskind. Let's give it up. He's with the